Well,
good.
yeah, I would say the same. It's good today. Yeah, it's a good day today.
I think it's a bit hot where you are, Keith, isn't it?
Yes, 32. Hence the face wipe.
We
I
melted
could
in
do the
Wales
whole
when we
body
had
actually.
35.
Okay, yeah, I think I'd like to start with my little town that I grew up in. A little bit about that. The town's known as Workington. It's mainly steel. It was mainly a steel and mining town with farming outside, of course. And I was brought up from. Yes, yeah. Is that better? See, I can't see myself, so yeah. And I was brought up Roman Catholic, so we were taught by nuns and then priests in the little school. By the time we got to junior school, it was a bit more diverse. But I began to feel at school, I felt a suppression of a program. I know what it is now. I felt my mind was being formed, that my opinions of life were being formed by this school and by the religion. And I think by 10 years old, I realized that this wasn't me, and I couldn't believe in this God the way it was expressed. And I also felt that women played a bigger part in religion, and this wasn't seen. So I felt that the feminine energy had been ignored. And the feminine energy, I realize now, is the part we use mostly for clairvoyance. And so if we suppress the feminine, we suppress the spirit.
Yes. We don't appear, sorry, Jazz, we don't appear to be on screen. We just have audio, but.
Right, everyone should be able to see us now. Hang on. There you go.
Okay.
I'm just bringing it up on mine now as well. Carry on, Keith, because it's really
okay.
What you're saying, buddy.
Well, basically, by 11 years old, I was getting out of school as much as possible, and there was a girl at school who was a very clever girl that liked me. We were friends. So she wrote letters for me as my mother, which was sent into school, and I skipped weeks at a time. I managed to get away with this, and I would go to the local library, which opened at 9 o'clock, and I would come out of school. I'd sneak out, get a bit of food, come back in, and I would finish at 4 and go home as if I was being to school for my parents.
Richard,
but there was a letter there, so I was covered. And the reason was there was no books. I was reading about yoga. I was reading about Buddhism. I was reading Sigmund Freud and Carl Gustav Jung, how the mind works. I was interested in what makes us work.
Yeah, and I can find. Do you know there's a lot of like kids coming up now, right? And I'm seeing this, especially like in my nephew's generation. You know, he's a couple of generations ahead of me now, and I'm seeing it with like a lot of children where it seems like school is a bit too slow for them. With him, it was all about computers and coding and that sort of thing, and it felt that, you know, they could understand that he could do an A-level IT course literally within a matter of days. And
yes.
It's because his mind had already digested that information, had already been, he'd already been aware of it. And we find this in the paranormal, don't we, Rich? Where we got, you know, children who are coming in who are like almost like super aware of things. Have you noticed that?
Yeah. I think this is the problem for the people who control, and we could get into, couldn't we, you know, the people who are in control, and, you know, what is behind that control. We could take like David Icke's attitude of a pyramid of control, which I believe there is a kind of pyramid of control, but we don't have to see exactly the same way David Icke sees it.
No.
But I wouldn't argue against his theory that we are programmed to be obedient. We are programmed to be submissive. to, for example, close our heart and watch half the world starve while we are wasting. We have so much money. Our children have so much money. Not all our children, but the West compared to some parts of the world where starvation goes on. This is control. This is mind control, media control.
We're not seeing all of your face, buddy. Can you lean back slightly, or maybe tilt the camera forward slightly?
Maybe I move this back. How's that?
There you go. If you lean forward again like you were, that's perfect. That's perfect. It's,
so that feeling, I'm certain it's the same feeling that Richard and yourself has got, which is, if there's a spirit world, that spirit world has a bigger spectrum of awareness and knowledge.
Absolutely.
We can find wisdom through that.
I grew up until I was about 9-10 years old in a specialist school for the blind, and the way that people were sort of taught there was a lot slower. So like you wouldn't be doing your GCSEs until you were 18 there, right?
Yeah.
And I used to kind of resent that school when I was sort of in my 20s, and now I find myself having a different attitude because there was more emphasis on play. There was more emphasis on me experiencing the world as me and not having to adhere to the world as other people wanted to give me that information.
Yeah.
And it wasn't until I sort of come into my 30s that I started to really articulate that and see that time in my life, because when I came out of that school and went into the mainstream, I suffered like a lot of bullying, a lot of alienation because of my eyesight. So it wasn't until later on that I started to see that time more as a gift than
I was going to say, can you see what it gave you? I think that's the important thing, is that if we can see how these blocks in life, I came from a working class family, and my father used to talk about the rich and how they robbed from the poor. He was very socialist. But if you are your own person, you begin to question all of those theories, because you don't feel poor inside. Even when we were poor, you didn't feel poor. And you saw in your challenges, and this is where we beat systems of control. You saw in your challenges that you had more than what people were seeing in you. In a way,
I can relate to that. I can relate to that myself. I find that there's a lot of people that actually don't relate to that, and I think that's one of the reasons, one of many reasons why we see such activity in the world where people seem to be on autopilot or seem to be responding to things in such a way. And I was very much caught up in that programming and undoing that programming. For me, it was something that it's only taken until recently to start to understand. Rich, what's your take on sort of the programming of the mind and that sort of thing, can I ask?
Well, I mean, it was the same kind of thing for me through school, because obviously I had dyslexia, and back in the day, dyslexia was kind of unheard of, and it was brand new, and I was in anything else apart from like English. I was pretty good. I excelled, but when it came to like my outside world, I grew up quite street, because we did back in the day. We didn't have the internet. We didn't have phones. We grew up quite street. We grew up hanging around, getting up to mischief, drinking or whatever else was your vice like. And I had that life, and then I had a paranormal life.
Yes.
And I could never make the two tally up, because the one was like a constant. It's like that angel and devil on your shoulder, but mine was like a constant angel saying, think of the consequences of what you're about to do, and think of who you're going to hurt. And I was like, I wanted to play up, because you get bored and want to hang around, like, and then there was a part of me that sort of like, it was a bit conflicting, to be honest, through my childhood, and the system I was being taught with in regards to religion and through school and history, I always found I can't think of the words, like it's one-sided, and it just never felt like they were telling the truth.
Yes.
It never felt like they were being honest about it. And so I'd ask questions, and these questions were dismissed. They were just like, "Oh, you can't ask that question."
Yeah.
And it's the same with engineering. If you're an engineer or you're into electronics, and the same within school, if you wanted to try something different, you were sort of shunned away from it.
Yeah.
And it's that system is by design. That school system is just enough to get you into the workplace.
Yeah.
And if you're smart enough, you'll go beyond it. But that is a personal preference. With everything else going on in life, you won't. It's very difficult for a person to go beyond the education that you're given. And that system is by design.
Yeah. Yeah.
It is by design.
Yeah, absolutely. Because I think, Jelly, did you want to say something there?
No, you carry on, buddy.
Okay. No, I would say that system is part of a control mechanism. If you go back to the ancient wisdom, if you read about it rather than explore it directly, if you read about those ancient systems, they go back to Egyptian times. You can see the pyramid as something wonderful, or you can see it as the perfect symbol of control. A pyramid is, at the bottom you have the weight carrying. At the very top of the pyramid, you have all of the control. And pyramid structures and triangle structures are used in the mind to create an automatic. If you see a triangle, you immediately feel power from it, or you feel there's a power in that symbol. So symbols have been used psychologically, for example, in advertising, but they're also used in magic or hidden psychology, we can call it, or esoteric psychology, as ways of controlling the flow of energy of the mind or the emotions. So dark magic is the use of symbols to control the masses, which I think some of the hidden societies use very effectively, actually.
Well, you think of a pyramid. I mean, nearly every culture on Earth has their own form of pyramid. And if you think of the top, like in, say, the Mayans,
yes,
the top of it, only a select few could actually stand at the top of it, because
Absolutely.
there was enough room. Yeah, there was enough room for a select, and everybody else was at the bottom.
Yeah, yeah.
And that's where they built them in steps. So only, you think of that mindset.
Yes.
The people at the bottom looking at. It is by design. In its very nature, a pyramid is control.
Sure.
So, yeah.
Sure. And if you think of that, that's been pushed on us as a religious motive or symbol, a pyramid. And a pyramid is basically, I think, neutral, but you can use it in two ways. You can use it as a control mechanism, or you can use it as a system to generate good too. It depends how it's used. I think all symbols have two sides. This is the problem for us, or as the modern word is, the challenge for us to find out how is that symbol working. And this is where I think, we talk about the mindset or mind control. Think of advertising. Think of the power of a symbol on a trainer. That makes a person buy a trainer that's 3 times more expensive than another trainer because it's got a certain symbol on that set of shoes. Think of that. Think of the power of the symbol.
Well, in magical terms, it's known as a sigil.
So that
it can be used in a very similar sort of way. If you look at a Ouija board, for example, one of the reasons why Ouija boards can actually be so dangerous is not so much the fact of how the board is used, but it's the fact of what it represents in the minds of the user. and therefore it's the expectations that the user is placing upon the board, and because they're using that tool in such a way, they are actually manifesting, because it always comes back to, and you see this in science, you look at it in the sense of the double slit experiment, where you fire the photon through the two slits, and if it's observed, it's a point, it's a direct point. If it's not observed, it becomes a wave. So the very foundation. So this is the question that I've been kind of grappling with and trying to break down, and sort of looking at over, especially with everything that's going on in the world right now with COVID-19 and everything else. And I've probably just got us demonetized for, not that we earn any money from this anyway, I've probably just got a shadow ban for just saying that word, because you can't even say it on YouTube these days. But this is the question that I've been grappling with. Is this a sense of a control where it is a group of people, or a group of or a structure of people, or a consciousness then, where it is a like a cult, like David Icke would describe it, creating this control and saying we will control the masses through X, Y, and Z, through compartmentalization, through controlling the flow of technology, through controlling the flow of money, blah, 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 blah. Or is it a fundamental part of the development of human consciousness, or is it both? Because when I look at sort of consciousness from a personal perspective, like what we've spoke about with the schooling, it's almost like an evolution. It's an evolution as you grow. It's like Einstein said, you cannot solve a problem with the same level of consciousness that created it. So are we seeing the manifestation, let's say, of big business, corporations, that sort of thing, that are the manifestation of the prevailing area of which the mass human consciousness is in at the moment, and how we think about the world? Because how we think about the world can determine how the next generation thinks about the world, because how we think of the world indoctrinates the next generation. So there is, but also on the other side of things, right, when you look at it, if you look at the way in which we have become, in many terms, especially Western, a much freer society. I was watching something the other day, and part of the thought of, like, maybe, so you're looking at things like there is a great deal of slavery left in the world. Of course there is. There's a great deal of problems. There's a great deal of control with the things like money and the banking system and all these different things, right? But also the freedom that we have got has come apart due to certain things, certain technology. For example, birth control, or for example, the internet, giving us access to much more and a much wider variety of information, actually probably a lot bigger than we can actually consciously process. So I suppose you've got to look at it in the sense of there is that sort of good and evil, or light and dark, or whichever way you want to portray it, sort of divide happening in the world. That's undeniable. But is it a consequence of where we are in our development, or is it a consequence of something that's been guided a certain way through a length of time? And that's kind of where I've been coming at it from it, and trying to sort of because I've believed for a long time it's a control mechanism. I still do. And it's not just belief. The proof is in the pudding, and you only have to look at, you know, the current circumstances that we're in, with half the world on lockdown and very few people actually challenging that, to see that there is control mechanisms in the world. And
okay. Can I just stop you for one moment?
You
interject one little thing here. if you think about it, Jared, the stopping of us from believing in the spirit world was done by so-called psychic research, by scientists who were psychologists. Now, they, on one level, they stopped it, while secretly they used distant seers in their wars.
Yeah.
They used people in hidden CIA departments.
Yeah.
They used guinea pigs. They took top psychics, and a lot of all this information is accessible now.
Yeah, it's on the...
And so that what they denied spirituality, and they denied the non-local use of mind, i.e., that mind can travel beyond the skull. It can travel through space as consciousness outside our bodies. And they knew it was true. On one level, they had a load of people saying mediums were liars. They were mentally crazy, disturbed, and at the same time, secretly in warfare and other techniques, they were searching for Russian submarines using psychics and distant seers.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's the thing. As
but Himmler, he had nine psychic women. Himmler, when he built his castle, he built it specifically for divination and to communicate with spirit. So I mean.
See, so what do we have this year? We have a whole load of people got controlling, like the Nazis. They were searching for the Ark of the Covenant. We know that's true. It's not just something from films.
Yeah.
And they were searching for the long lost secrets that came right from Babylon through Egypt, through the Jewish systems, up through to this time. They were looking for the secret keys to control the world.
Yeah, and to a point, I would say they found them, because look at where we are. Look at where we are in our, in our present circumstances, and look at what.
Yeah.
Look at the narrative that we are being fed, and how many holes are in it, and. I think anyone with an ounce of sense can look at what was going on in the world at the moment and what we're being told, and say this isn't making sense. This isn't making any cognitive sense to any sort of individual that has a brain in their head. What we're being told about this what's happening in the world. So as I said, I agree with what you're saying, and yes, as I say, it's undeniable. But
have you two felt, when you think back over the last 3 or 4 years, that the timeline seems to be shifting, that what you remember happened 2 or 3 years ago and what is happening now there's no true continuity what's happening on the world with the past few years. It's almost like we are shifting through dimensions backwards and forwards, or vibrational fields constantly.
Well,
so what is reality?
Yeah,
this
is the thing. So one of the things that I've had with the current situation was, you've got two narratives. You've got this deadly virus that could kill a lot of people in the world, or you've got this manipulation and this mirror being held up to everyone. Now, over the last 10 years, we've had things like the Mandela effect, where people have been we've both had personal experiences with that, haven't we, Rich?
Yeah. I have actually had a personal experience with the Mandela effect. It is a lot to do with our the way we observe the world. I think the Mandela effect. There is anomalies that need investigating.
Yes,
definitely. There is some things that are undeniably odd, shall we say. The rest of it you can put down to, it's like when you misplace your car keys. You your brain tells it, you put them on the corner of the table. But really, you left them upstairs. Your brain will tell you that's the last place you left them. And it works on the same principle as the world around us with advertising and different things. Going into that, the world has changed in a way that I thought would be later.
Yeah.
I knew this was coming. After 9/11, I have, systematically bumped my gums, if you like,
yes.
about problems, about the problems that we face.
Yeah.
And the things we ignore and the path we're leading. And you've got so many people that we actually talked about this in the last Now debate. We have so many people, because things don't directly affect them, they're easy to ignore.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. Because we have so much diversion, don't we?
Yeah. We are so easily just, sideswipe. You can be watching something horrific on telly, and then you can put X Factor on.
Yeah.
And that situation is gone out.
The TV is a problem, but then you have YouTube, which gives us power back to the people in a way. When used in a good way, it's better than, in many ways, than the set programming which we're being fed through the TVs, don't you think, and the newspapers? Well, it gives a potential, at least.
Yeah,
for
absolutely. And you are seeing, I suppose, video streaming or these platforms, because YouTube, anyone who's having these types of discussions on YouTube now with any sort of following is coming under attack. They are systematically deleting people and channels and censoring people. But then you have...
So you're telling me you don't exist, and I'm just talking... Have you been deleted yet? Or?
No.
Is that tomorrow?
Not yet.
Not yet. But
you're not deleted. Good. I'm just checking you're there.
The risk...
Yeah.
But what is also happening is the dynamics of it, because you have then other things like BitChute and other alternative platforms which are now coming up where those people are going to. So it's almost like people, in a sense, who are getting this information out are staying ahead of the curve because they're not worrying about it. Well, if I can't put it on YouTube, there's going to be someone else that wants to, and you can't put that genie back in the bottle. So you absolutely you are.
Yeah, there's some more. There's so many genies jumping out of bottles too. And see, there's two. I know I've read your stuff, both your stuff, and it's fascinating and really interesting research you're both doing, and you've got a line of inquiry. Fiona, who you just met, my wonderful wife, she is amazing seer. She's told everyone, no, this won't happen, but she told me way back in 1999 it starts in 2020.
Yeah. Now
it starts in 2020. Because I was always thinking it's all going to begin. Something happens this year. 2020 is a crux year with humanity. And there's two other things, if you don't mind, that I must tell you, because I'll forget if I don't.
Please do.
Yeah.
One is, in Sweden, we lived in the middle of the woods in an old school surrounded by deep forest. One way there was 7 kilometers before the next house, just forest. We were visited by so many light balls. We were visited by... I got knocked out. I got a scar put on the nose. We had two nurses staying with us, and I asked what this was, and she said, well, that wasn't there yesterday, but that's like a surgical cut, but it's like a week old because it's been stitched up and healed all in one night. Okay?
Yeah.
Right? So after that, I don't want to move things around this room. I have abstract artists. I'm also an abstract artist. Before that, I did little cottages and people, and I suddenly got big canvases, and I started to paint, and I have sold loads of big canvases, and I have loads of big canvases of really crazy and beautiful scenes that never came out of this UFO experience. The second thing that I want to say is I know we're not alone. So what is the part? There is the question of so-called aliens. Are we being lied to? Have our governments been in contact with intelligence from other worlds, not just other dimensions? So that is another aspect. We have the spirit dimension, and some of the spirits don't necessarily come from Earth.
Yeah.
Some of the teachers, some of the higher teachers, they come from other star systems. And then how many millions of people have had direct experience of UFO encounters, and also consciousness changes, deep level changes in their thinking and emotion.
Absolutely.
So someone's helping us.
Yeah.
I had that experience myself, Keith. The first time I ever went to the church and meditated, and I had an ET contact experience, and I wanted to do exactly what the meditation was telling me. I wanted to go down a country path, end up by an oak tree, maybe see some spirit, and carry on living my life. Right? Yeah. That was.
But they had other plans for you, Richard.
Yeah. They had way other plans. And I can remember asking Gwen, and because when I come back, she said, "Rich, where did you go?" And I said, "I don't know." I said, "You're the teacher." And she said,
"Tell me."
She said, "You disappeared." She said, "It's the first time I've experienced it, but you left this world."
Yeah.
And I said, well, I told her what happened. I said, I was on board a ship. I said, there was a being in front of me at the control pad, blah, blah, blah. I said, it was very odd. He was looking at me just as surprised as I was to see him.
Yes.
And anyway, I went on for a bit, and I said, how is this happening to me? She said, you go to a place where all lines cross.
Yes.
Now, she said, I can help you with the spirituality side of it and connecting with the deceased and spirit.
Yeah.
She said, that side, I can't. She said, I believe it, but you're basically on your own.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, well, that's great. Like, I come here.
Thank you. Yeah.
Yeah, I come here for some knowledge. And I got to be honest, the connection between the two is so surprising.
Yes.
Right? That it's the same. You feel like I've gone across the bridge into the world of spirit, and I've also gone through a wormhole into the world of extraterrestrials and different worlds.
Yeah,
and two are so similar in base reality in your mind.
Yes,
that it's astonishing, and I think what it is just like there's some of us on Earth who are just on the cusp of true spirituality in its truest sense, right? Because it is different layers of spirituality. There's people who think they're spiritual, and then there's spiritual. Right?
Well, I think if you think you're spiritual, as you know, usually what my old teacher, I had a personal teacher called John Solans, who's long dead now, well, long in the world of spirit. But basically he said to me, you know, Keith, it's never ever what you think it is. And other thing he told me was that your consciousness is endless, absolutely endless. It expands through all the universes. Never forget that, son, he said. Your consciousness is endless.
I honestly,
every person, their consciousness is endless.
I had them experiences in meditation. I had an experience once where I kept having to travel through these tunnels, through these wormholes.
Yeah.
And they would take me to different peoples, right? Well, beings. And I said, she said, this gives you the time to think about what you're going to encounter, and give you time to think about what you just encountered. And I was being a bit, well, can't you just be there? Yeah. And she said, I said, can't you just travel in an instant? She said, well, you can through your mind. And they zipped me. And I was looking at the Milky Way, right?
Yeah.
And I have never felt so disconnected to life ever through any meditation, because I was outside of the galaxy and I was in the space between space. Yeah. And I was just to teach me that lesson. And and all of a sudden I was back where I was supposed to be, and I went, all right, point taken. I'll go through. I'll do what you tell me to do. Like, and it's just. And I was thinking,
a bit of a spiritual kick up the, what.
Yeah. Where in my mind would have felt that emptiness. Like that wasn't my mind creating that emptiness. That emptiness was felt. I felt it. I felt that disconnection from life. And I mean, that changed my things, little things like that changed my world.
Yeah. Yes.
And you know, people should experience it. People need to experience
I know, and there's so many different ways, from small experiences to amazingly large ones, like cosmic ones. Yeah, I got one when I was very drunk. I was in Bournemouth University, and I got very drunk. I came home, and I just lay on the bed, and next minute I shot out of my bed, out through the big curtains. It's round the Bournemouth cricket field, this place. I can't remember the name of the road now. I mean, I was 21 years old. And I shot across the cricket field, and I saw 3 houses with lights on, and I remember exactly where they were. And I thought, I'm on my bed. I'm on my bed. Boom! I was on my bed. So I got up and I walked physically across, pulled those curtains to the windows, pulled those curtains, and guess what? Those exact 3 houses that I'd seen while lying on the bed and come out of the body experience were the ones with the lights on. Now, I hadn't looked at those. I came into the house it was summertime. There was trees. I couldn't have seen those houses while going in the front door. I had been shown in that we're not bound to the body. We can travel through space as quick as this.
Well, yeah. You're mentioning about the spirit world and the ET world. Look at the sessions that we've done with the Council 12. And there are sessions...
I don't know much about your connections with that, but yeah, tell me.
Basically, it all started for me personally about 6 or 7 years ago, where we moved into this house for the first time, and I woke up one evening and there was this figure standing in my doorway, and it was literally about, like, say 7-8 foot tall, and it looked like a tall white. That was my frame of reference for it. And then I my partner also saw another one on the other side of the room, and they came and sort of sat down and spoke to us, and they were like sort of translucent. They were like apparitions, but they were like kind of translucent, and they spoke telepathically. And they spoke a lot of the time in symbols, and they basically said, if there's a baby crying on the bus, why do humans get irritated? And
sorry, Zen Cohen.
And
Zen Little.
And it's like, what do you mean? It's, well, that baby is exhibiting pain the only way it knows how, and yet most humans get irritated by it. And I was this is how me and Richard became acquainted, because who manner of things...
Did you find him crying in the bus station, or...?
No. A whole manner of different things kicked off, which I'm not going to speak about on camera, because I don't...
No, some things are private,
they don't just involve me. So if it involves me, that's fine. If it involves others, that's a different story whatsoever.
Sure.
But basically... one thing led to another, and I ended up working with Richard doing the paranormal, and I was working as a medium at the time anyway, and about a few months later, I was introduced to the Ghost Box, which is a device that sweeps through radio frequencies and spirit manipulate the audio in that, and it was it clearly said my name, and I automatically had this connection. I felt I almost like kind of fell in love in a sense with it, and I got my own about a year later, and it did a few experiments with it, and we were using them on cases, and we felt that it would behave in different ways. And when I started going back through it a few times, there was like a little bit of personal messages and things there, and so we decided to do experiments where we would test all these different devices in front of a live audience on YouTube. Doing experiments, great idea. Doing them live, big mistake. But I think we were allowed to make that mistake because we wouldn't of what we'd learn from it. And we were given information about the control system around the world. We even did one on the Mandela effect, and it said about the fact that the Mandela effect was part of the ascension process. It wasn't CERN, which was the prevailing theory at the time. It was part of, and I actually looked into the Mandela effect quite a lot, and the idea of it was stretched back to the 1990s. It just wasn't called the Mandela effect. It was called consciousness shift, which was in a book. It was first mentioned, to the best of my knowledge, in a book by a lady called Cynthia Sue Larson, who is a quantum physicist, I believe, or she is a physicist, a trained physicist. And it was called Reality Shifts, How Consciousness Changes the Physical World. What we have found is, we did that many sessions. It will take me years to go through all of them. But the sessions, there would be sessions recorded in 2015 that would relate to 2020. They would tell me about things that are happening at the time I was transcribing the sessions, but also they would change. I would transcribe it, and they would definitely say one thing at one point. We'd go back maybe a year later, and it would say something completely different. What I wrote on screen to what I actually said would be two different things. I'll give you an example with the video we recently did about my dog Dave. There's a set of responses there where they were saying about visiting us, and I say, did you visit me this week? And they said yes, the dog with no teeth, because Dave, he had teeth, but his teeth were like, he had issues with his teeth then. And he said the dog with no teeth came in, he was crying. I don't understand why you why
I'm listening, I'm just getting a bit of water.
It's okay. I don't understand why you gift him a home. And when I check it now, it doesn't say that. It just says the toothless dog walked in. And then it goes on to something else. And what it goes on to is quite arbitrary. It's not like it goes on to anything of any like real significance. It says something else that is like quite sort of just random or not like. And it's quite funny because I understand that lesson now it wasn't the fact that they didn't understand why I gifted him a home. It was the fact that I needed to understand that connection between I've got two dogs and I've got a connection, a very specific connection with the both of them, and it's for different reasons. And so we've had these messages, and these messages sometimes have changed over time. Sometimes they are very, very clear and you can hear them clearly. Other times they are not so clear, and I suppose for me, I can hear them because my eyesight, my hearing is a bit more acute than most. I will spot things a lot quicker than someone who's sighted. But, there is this thing where, with ITC, which I think is supposed to be, where different people might actually hear different things from the same source. So we've had these connections, and we've explored these connections on this channel. And it does factor into, this opening up of consciousness of humanity, and this breaking down, this process of breaking down the programming. And what happens when you go through that is you go through a crisis point. You get these people saying, I'm spiritually awoken, I am now woke, and I am in the world of fluffy bunnies and flowers and all the rest of it.
The old secret societies used to basically call it false spirituality, where it's the ego playing God. It's like those people that say you can't, if you point out a truth, you're being negative.
Yes. But the actual process is actually quite savage, because your entire worldview has to come down to a point because for you to move forward. Because
everything has to break down in us anyway, doesn't it? Time and time again for new consciousness.
It does, because the old prevailing consciousness has to be broken down. And I feel that's part and parcel of what we're seeing.
I agree. Yeah,
but as regards to the Council of 12, it was, Keith, I met them through meditation, and then they contacted us through the Ghost Box.
Yeah.
And they said it's the Council of 12.
Yeah.
And I got to be honest, a lot of the times in meditation, I thought, is this meeting, as you do, it's hard not to, is this meeting me?
Yeah.
Is this my subconscious creating this?
Yeah, and when I think you have to do that, because your subconscious is powerful, isn't it? So you've got to sort it out.
And I did until they contacted us and they said they're the Council of 12. And they were giving us this message that by any stretch of the imagination is super spiritual.
Yeah.
And it talks of our potential and the wonder of us and the world we can create.
Yes.
And, the way we can go if we choose.
Yeah. This I believe in completely, and this is how my teacher John Slance used to talk. He used to sit there and just talk it, ream it out, and I never recorded a word of it, unfortunately. I just listened and selfishly took it all in myself. But basically, you look at that and you look like things. I don't know if you've seen the old Zeth teachings that came out in the 70s, but Zeth teachings were similar as what you're talking about. But I think it's progressing. It's like bit by bit they're giving us enough so they don't blow our minds.
Yes.
You know what I mean? If they give us too much, it's like we've taken a bag full of LSD, and the mind can't take it. So, probably I think your teachings are very important, and I think there's more and more of this. But there's a lot of false people too out there.
Well, you're drawing an interesting...
and they copy stuff that, if you publish your stuff, they copy it, and then you get a watered down and a falsified version because everyone wants to be a superstar. And the only people that the spiritual forces can use in a proper way are those who, I feel like yourself, you're not driven by a need to be seen and a need to be superstars. But if someone is full of a need to be a superstar, it isn't forces of light, it's forces of destruction that will use, and then false New Age teachings come out.
I agree. And
they're dangerous. They're half thought out poppycock, basically.
Well, the example that they actually give for that, Keith, is Heaven's Gate. The cult Heaven's Gate, and how they came up in the 70s and 80s, and it was basically through the self-destruction of one man, the 39 people ended up dead.
Yes, yes,
and
yes.
That is something that they have spoke of, because if you look at the teachings of Heaven's Gate and you look at the sort of spirituality teachings, there actually is not a lot of difference between them. It's the way those have been interpreted and the way they were misconstrued in that time. Because...
And how... I was just going to say, how does that relate to, in a way, all the Old Testament and the old Babylonian books, going right back to ancient Egyptian ideas, ancient Greek ideas of the war of the gods upon earth? Who are the gods that warred upon the earth? It wasn't human beings, it was other gods,
Yeah.
So there's maybe, I think our planet has been used sometimes as an experimental area for other consciousnesses. So therefore, the compassionate ones. See, I believe Buddha was enlightened by intelligences that were universal, and he was a great teacher because he taught us to love and to basically that life was quite simple. Don't hurt, be kind, don't kill, and everyone is a Buddha. There wasn't a hierarchy, and the false religions are so bound by hierarchy, aren't they?
Any teaching is based in truth. and to a point. It's when you look at it from its original source, the problem is context. It's like you look at the Bible. There's a hell of a lot of manipulation in the Bible.
Absolutely.
Does that necessarily mean there was a Jesus? Well, I personally believe there was a person called Jesus, or someone of which that story is central, because that story has survived the passage of time.
Yeah.
And that has not done so through control. It has to a point, but it captures the imagination.
Sure. But it's got a mythological value, psychological value.
Absolutely. Yeah. But if you take it, most people take the Bible, for example, as if it was written yesterday, whereas actually they don't take it in the context of the time when it was actually written, or what has actually been done to it, because a lot of the Bible was written after the fact, and a great deal of time after the fact.
Sure. And from my point of view, the biggest problem with the Bible is that it cut out the power of women. Mary Magdalena, if you study her history, she came from a royal house.
Yeah, the lady of the tower.
Jesus couldn't have gone into a synagogue and talked as a single man. He would have been executed for doing so. It was against the law of the Sadducees and the Pharisees. Jesus was married. And there's a story about a daughter, Sarah, of Jesus, in the south of France, in the Pyrenees areas, which is being crushed. So you see, if you just...
Is that for the Merovingians? Is that the one you're talking about?
That's the bloodline of the Merovingians, yeah. But, it's there. Fiona and I have travelled 2 or 3 times now through the south of France. It's not so far, it's a day's drive, 14 hours drive. And you can feel it still. You can feel that energy. And the deliberate destruction of feminine energy and making all female religions into witchcraft, the killing of millions of women and feminine spiritual consciousness. Why? Because women give birth and men more easily fight wars. If our religions are based on a warlike, godlike idea of an invincible man, we go on fighting wars, and we still are. Look at the 3 prophetic religions, Judaism, Christianity, and Islam. Still fighting.
Yeah, absolutely.
Men are strong, and women are servants, no matter how you look at it. So we are suppressing the feminine until we feel the feminine within us and allow that feminine energy to equal the strength of the male in our religions. We won't ever have peace on earth. That's my personal belief. That bit is so important, and if we miss that bit out, talk about male gods as much as you want, and all you get is warfare and power struggles.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because men like to have power struggles.
Yeah.
And women stop us from doing it,
Yeah.
Who stops you fighting? You woman. Don't hit him. Walk away. Well, you're ready to smack the guy. Seriously. I know I'm generalising, but we're peacemakers.
No. I've done the doors for years, Keith, so I know exactly where you're coming from in that regard.
Yeah.
I've been a firm believer of this. I've said this quite a few times on the channel. If all the women got together in the world would change tomorrow.
Absolutely.
Right? If they saw their own power, they are, without question, because you've had Jordan Peterson. I don't know if you know Jordan Peterson.
I do know Jordan Peterson. I like him, actually.
He's been in the media a lot, and he's saying that you've got feminists and different things who are trying to change the roles of men and women.
Yeah.
When in certain parts of the world, when the structure has come out, women are more nurturing, they're more caring than men.
Yeah.
That's science. That's
and feminists are trying to make women less caring and more manly.
Yeah, and this is the thing. You can't.
So they want more psychotic women.
Yeah, and you can see it. It's there. The argument's there, but women, as a rule, you look at men's mental health now in the world, right? More and more men are coming forward. Are trying to say they suffer with mental health, but it's still regarded as a weakness for men to come forward and say, I can't cope.
Yeah.
Right? To say, I can't cope with what's going on. Women can say it. Not a problem.
Yeah.
And you look at that balance, right? And you look at why you see these divides and why the structures are wrong. And it's all, like you said, it's all a construct of design. And it's
sure, because when they put men in power, they took away the very feminine value of intuitive wisdom, because men have, in general, less intuitive power. And by closing down the feminine energy, they then, if there is someone behind the scenes we don't know, in the spiritual levels, or even aliens or extraterrestrials, should we say, then you can manipulate the world by making women powerless, which they are within many religions. In all honesty, they are powerless. And men are in total control. And what does that? It always keeps the world on the edge of potential warfare.
Yeah, absolutely. Because, you know, and this is the thing. It's like when Peterson talks about things like, what does he say? There should always be equality of opportunity, but don't expect equality of outcome. And people are up in arms over it. And I'm thinking, well, no, because... And that goes across the board. Because at the end of the day, if you put X person in Y role, and then Z person goes into Y role, they're gonna make that role, or they're gonna make that situation their own. Because you should never, you know, judge an outcome of this sort of thing across the board. And that goes for male, female, it goes for different races, it goes for different people. You know, all of us, every individual on planet Earth sees the world it might be subtly, but subtly, and sometimes even in big ways, in fundamentally different terms. Because we all have our own frame of reference.
Yes.
And it's like, you know, okay, well, there's only 7 female stockbrokers. Well, how many women actually want to be stockbrokers? Now, I believe the ones who want to be should have equal opportunity and equal benefit from doing so, if that's what they want to do.
Yeah, but in all honesty, you take a look at what we're doing, and we are giving in to religion once again. You know, we took the religion I was born to in this life, Roman Catholicism. Martin Luther came along and he toppled it in Germany. And from there spread out all of the other forms of protesters against Catholicism, which basically built other Christian establishments. Unfortunately, none of them took an idea of the equality but difference of the top of those churches being both male and female, and being able to administer sacred rites, but in different ways, not necessarily the same ways.
Yeah.
A woman would perform rituals in a distinctly female way, and a male probably in a distinctly male way. And there's nothing wrong with that. No. There's nothing wrong with being different. This is a myth being created that difference is a bad thing.
When I'm working with people, when I work as a medium, one of the mantras I use is expectation creates limitation. And I think that is something that, you know, more and more people should start to adopt, because when we expect a certain outcome to something, then, you know, if we start to incorporate that in our lives, is that we actually limit the possibilities. And, you know, it's like when you're a medium, people...
I'm sorry, you made me think of something when you said that. You know.
Go on.
No, well, Fiona and I, you know, because Fiona's a medium too, and we've done mediumship all over a lot of Scandinavia actually, and some other places too. And when I think about, you know, she would do a contact and she would sit down. We often work with interpreters, and I would do a contact and bring the spirit through and bring the details through. And she always worked very precisely with very good detail, but it was always far more emotionally caring when I look at it than my message, which would come through with detail, but it would be, oh, and you can fix this, and it would be more harsh and more pushy. and hers, and she is a very strong woman. Her mediumship would be really precise, but it was softer. It was more caring, and she always put a caring touch at the end of it. And when I would go without thinking, so fix it, fix it, and then she would go.
It's quite funny.
You can fix it, my dear. You really can fix it. Believe in yourself. You can fix it. So I started to adopt a little bit more of her way, and she started to adopt a little bit more of my way.
I noticed
doing the meetings,
When me and my partner were doing it back 7-8 years ago, we were actually the opposite. She, if I'd known her to give someone a prop that I did.
My missus can be like that too. Yeah.
But
I'm not going to talk about it because she'll watch it and I'll be in trouble later.
I'm going to tear someone down and put them back together within a sentence. And it's just took me about, an hour. She's just gone and gone, that. If you do that, you'll be sorted. If you don't, you're screwed.
Yeah, but I think this is... Oh, hello, boy. This is all down to... also our mind's work, isn't it, and our experiences. You have to cope obviously with problems with seeing. I don't know if you were partial blind or what since childhood.
Yeah, I have been. I basically am registered blind, but I do have some vision, but I am actually registered blind, so one of my eyes is basically screwed, the other one just sort of does the job of...
But that third one there is really alive.
Yeah, that one's alright.
Yeah, it's really alive. I can see it. It's full of energy,
You know that triangle? It's functioning.
It's functioning.
I've got a bit of a Klingon going on there.
It's male, look, he's attacking me with the third eye. Yeah. So but there is a difference, isn't there, with the way we can learn a lot from women. And when we cut them out of religion, then what I think happens is male religion goes to an extreme, and the female religions, Wicca religions, what some would call, the church would call witchcraft, goes to an extreme as well, because we're not meeting in the middle anymore.
Yeah, exactly.
And I think we've got a place. We need to work with both sides, the yin and yang of it, basically.
Yeah,
as the Chinese would say.
And we need to sort of look, not be so fenced in when it comes to our traditions. It's like saying, okay, God doesn't really care how you worship him. I think what God really cares more about is how you treat each other. And adopting different sort of traditions, or looking at different traditions and seeing what works for you, that I think is creating a rigid structure that we've had to adhere to. For any atheist, the biggest problem with the Bible is the Vatican. And it's not even the way they preach or anything like that. Just look at it. Just look at the physicals,
it's
the
total
affluence.
Control mechanism, isn't it? Establishment.
Just look at the affluence, and that's all you need to know. That's all.
Well, look, I've been in battle with the Roman Catholic Church for many lifetimes, and believe me, they don't fight fair.
Well, you look at Mary Magdalene there, was what you're saying, Keith. I mean, the fact that they vilified her and made her out to be a prostitute,
which she wasn't,
right?
Yeah.
When she was more in tune with JC than any of the disciples.
Absolutely.
And the fact that they did that says a lot. And do we think they will ever change that? Because they would have to put egg on their faces to do that. And I mean, if that story had been, if Mary Magdalene had been Jesus's right-hand woman, right? Or equal in the teachings, which she would have been, then what would that have done to the world? What would that have done?
Well, it would have made a lot calmer world than the one we've had. But the other thing is, don't forget that they have the biggest occult library in the world, in the Vatican.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And so every form of magic, sigil magic connected to form, and how form creates energy waves in particular ways, sound magic, word magic, stone magic, everything. They've got it. They banned the rest of the world from seeing these books, but they've got it, which means that the Roman Catholics know how to do magic in a big way.
Yeah. And all magic really is a type of science that we don't really understand quite yet. It's the science of consciousness. It's the
and energy and vibration.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
You know, you look at you can look at the sort of Tibet. There are certain monks and things in the world that can actually just lift rocks with the sound of their voice.
Absolutely.
You know, it's amazing. It is.
I've seen a few things myself. It's disappeared now. Yeah.
So, for some, to sort of, you know, we've covered a lot of ground in this, but for someone watching this, that, you know, that we're on about, like, you know, freeing this inner dictator, which is a term you said.
Okay, do you want me to kind of get on to the centre of that subject very quickly?
I do, because I've got a personal story that kind of helps. I don't know whether you want me to tell it first or whether you want to speak about it first.
I don't know. What do you think's best? If I just say it, then you can.
Yeah, go on. You speak about it, and we'll debate it later.
I think that the basis of freeing the inner dictator is to look at and deeply and honestly how your mind and emotional structures work, exactly how they work, where they work for you, how they make you see the world, and be really honest with it, how you side naturally with certain sides in arguments about the world, politics, etc. And you begin to explore a simple technique. Why do I think this? Why do I think this? Why do I think this? This is a technique I've taught many people. Why do I think this way? Why do I feel this way? If you just keep following that, very simple, but it's hard work. Very simply, you'll begin to expand out of what I call your inner little prison. For example, I knew as a boy, working wasn't going to hold me. I was going to see the world, because one small part of England was too small for me to grow. I had to experience much more. So it's that question, why? You know, why? Why do I see the world this way? Why do I give my power away is another good one to ask.
Yeah. Or am I giving my power away?
Yeah, I mean, it's like a tree. You know, when you start, other questions will form on that tree of it's a spiritual psychological process of expanding your mind by constantly asking you, is there another way of seeing this? And usually for the better, how could I be happy with this? How can I come to a conclusion with this? How can I, for example, let go of inferiority inside my feeling levels?
I actually, the story I wanted to give you was part of our interactions with the ghost box. The one person who comes through a lot is my brother.
Yes.
And that basically he describes through the ghost box that exact same process, which is every time you wake up in the morning, you say to yourself, right, I will just I want to experience the best today's got to offer. And basically he was saying the same thing, and he said that breaks the inner policeman. And when he said the dictator within, it was an image that I've had for the last 15-20 years, where if I was doing something that challenged certain beliefs, I'd have this mental image of being in an interview room being questioned by police. I've never experienced that before, but it came from an experience that I had over 20 years ago. Yeah. And it stuck because it felt as if I was doing something wrong, whereas it wasn't necessarily doing something wrong. I needed to challenge certain parts of myself. And when you said about the inner dictator, that kind of gave me a similar sort of feeling of that, and he called it the inner policeman. What's your view on that, Reg?
I've struggled not so much spiritually, because I seem to understand the world of spirit better than I understood the real.
Yeah.
To tell you the truth. Right?
You do, yeah.
And
I'm melting as like a piece of butter, sorry.
No, I'd just be a puddle and we'd just be talking about puddle now.
I am listening, honestly.
It's okay, dude.
Yeah, no, I've always sort of struggled more with the reality, because the reality seems to mess with my spirituality, because I understand, and it feels more natural to be spiritual.
Yeah.
And it feels like it's where I am happy being spiritual. And when I have to be unspiritual is when I feel my most miserable. And sometimes in the world we live in, you have to, like, it's a very fine balance. Like, I in my jobs, you know, as a doorman, I had to try and stay spiritual when people around me are drunk and just want to fill you in.
Yeah.
In my job in the council, I had to try and tell people that the environment is important when they really couldn't give a crap. Like, they didn't care. And I'd have to, like, affect their life, basically.
Yes. Yeah.
And I couldn't, for me, I've had my moments where I have wanted spirit to just sort of, like, leave me be.
Yeah.
And just let me just be normal. Just live, you know, it's hard enough living in the world without having a duality. So, I mean, that's kind of where I am with it. I feel like
that's a classic battle, you know. It's a classic. Yeah.
Yeah.
They all went through it, all of us, I think. But I think, you know, with you, I see that an old warrior. You know, I see you as a warrior. I like when we talked before we were on camera. I asked you a couple of questions, you know, and because I saw that in you, that warrior, and a warrior is a very difficult road to walk on, because I saw you as Japanese, actually. A quick flash of you in Japan as a warrior about 300 or 400 years ago, and I don't know if it's true or not, but that's what I saw. And I think that warrior is something that always leaves a mark in the soul, because you do it as a warrior for what is right, to keep structure and order in society. At the same time, you know you have to do something which is violent, and it goes against any religious or spiritual code that you carry inside. So you're always split against yourself. So you know, when people talk about the Zen warrior, especially in the samurai, at peace, and if you talk to, you know, when you have heard stories about people interviewing them when they all finished towards the end of when the army took over. A lot of them said, they had peace when they meditated, but they had nightmares of the people they'd killed when they weren't meditating, because taking a life is a very difficult thing. So I think that warrior thing is a big responsibility, because warriors are needed in this world sometimes. And I think you have that warrior, it's almost like a warrior archetype in you. At the same time, you've got healer energy, as I see it. So you're a healer and a warrior, I think. That's what I say.
I mean, I worked in quite a few dangerous jobs, right?
Yeah.
And where, like, I've had to deal with the public. I worked on a River Trains Wales.
Yeah.
And like I said, I worked on the doors, and I always, until it was the last resort, and I never ever was one to throw the first punch.
No, never. Some guys like it, but you didn't do that. No.
No, and as much as I like, you know, as much as I've never, you know, shunned away from a punch up if this one needed, but physically hurting people absolutely destroys me, and I managed a long time in my job to avoid that by using this. This was like a bit of this was a bit of a gift for me. Was having knowing the right things to say to the right people, because I have met so many walks of life. Yeah. From so many class backgrounds and everything else. I've had that balance where I can talk to that person and I can talk to that person up there. But yeah, I've always struggled with that, with the reality of trying to show people how wondrous the world is if you open your eyes.
No, if you don't mind me saying, I actually see all of what you're saying as an asset, because you have in you that strength to stand up and for what counts to you, and at the same time you've developed a compassion through this. And if you can put that total focus of the warrior with the compassion and find the exact vehicle to express that in the world, that's what you're looking for, I think.
Yeah. That is. I as Jazzy knows, I have struggled in that regards, but I wanted to show the world this. I've seen magic. I've seen things materialize out of thin air. I've seen people connect with people who have passed over. I've seen UFOs. I've seen. I've given messages that I couldn't possibly know. I've never met this person in my life, and I've connected with someone they love. Yeah. I've seen things levitate. I've seen telekinesis. I've seen I've seen every kind of light show that spirit can muster. Yeah. And it's all been incredible and beautiful and just a privilege. And you feel like it lifts just one of these things. Just one experience have lifted me beyond myself, above myself. I can remember the first time I met my higher self through meditation, and I was looked just like me, but I had a bit longer hair. I looked a bit like a Jedi, but I was still sarcastic and I was still me.
Yeah, but that's it, isn't it? But if you think about that, you cannot. If you believe in continual life through many lifetimes, you cannot have all these experiences without it being part of the structure of cause and effect or karma. So you can't have it if you don't deserve it. You don't get it unless you deserve it. I'm absolutely certain of that, because it's causality. It's a connection of effects and cause and effects. So yeah. So
but
maybe
that's the thing. Yeah, that's the thing, though, Keith. I've never felt like I've been worthy of it. Like, even when I was having these messages when I was younger, and I never heard of the Christ consciousness, right? And I was being pushed. Now, to me, right, I thought spirit were placing a massive burden on my shoulders, right? I didn't know it wasn't just me. It was thousands of people. Yeah. And basically, I was told it's just who chooses to listen gets the message out there. Yeah, yeah. I didn't see that at the time. As Jazzy knows, it messed me up, Jazz. You know that, and we've talked about it. Yeah. It rocked my world. What do you call him, Jazz?
Jazz? Yeah, he calls him Jazz.
Jazz. Jazz. Jazz, that's a good name. I like Jazz, yeah. I'll call him Miles Davis then. Miles Davis? I couldn't cope with it, though. I got to be honest, Keith, I couldn't cope with it. That's the one thing I've always knocked me, is feeling like I'm worthy of it. Yeah. Because I'm just a little guy from Wales who, sort of like helps people with ghosts in my eyes. Yeah. Can I just stop you for a moment, and I'll tell you this. I knew that in Workington when I was 10, 12 years old, when I was first reading those yoga books and they started talking about past lives. I knew that everyone in my family would stay in my town, except one who I thought would go away, and she did. But I knew that I had to leave that small town, because I love the town. I go back there now and again, but it still feels like a prison to me. And I think, with small towns, it's like nothing against things like the Welsh Valleys and things like that. And I met a lot of people from there when I was in Stansted. A lot of mediums come from Wales, and the south of Wales in particular, from the valleys, down near Bristol and all that area. A lot of Welsh mediums was in Stansted Hall back in the 90s. And they were great people, but but I could see it. They felt they had to stay there because it was tradition. And I had that, but I also had my father who came from Newcastle, so he was from the east side, and my mother who came from the west coast, but my grandmother was Irish. So I felt, well, they're all from different places, so I don't have to be in work. My family come from all over, and I think sometimes we have to move physically to break a chain that holds us to, if you like, the energy of one place. That's what did it for me anyway. I just knew that travel was important.
I've travelled around in my life. I've lived in different places. For me, it was actually the complete opposite. It was I did not want to come back to the valleys, and I tried everything I possibly could not to come back to the valleys, and it just literally didn't turn out that way. I ended up in a house 7 doors away from the house, no, 24 doors away from the house I grew up in. And it wasn't until, and I think it depends on the path that you take, because
I think it's individual in there. Yeah.
But it's also, what I also believe is there's a structure. There's a we take certain paths for a reason. Now,
sure.
I know I've been told by Spirit, and I feel this. I don't know how, because this is what annoys me, right? Is Spirit will tell you this is going to happen, this is going to happen, this is going to happen, and the way they've described it to me, and the way I've described it in different contexts, it's like the domino effect. Like you
can I just let my dog out?
Yeah, it goes nuts, man. Go nuts.
I'll go off the camera for 1 minute because he's
it's fine.
Get to mummy. Just hold on. Yeah, go boy. Go to mummy. Yeah.
Why are you smiling, Richard?
Just me. Okay. How many times your dog has done it?
Now. You know what dogs are like, don't you? Hi boys. You want to say hello? Hey. Oh, hello. Hello.
You're a
Sorry. Go.
Yeah, okay.
So we're both laughing because Richard,
you see, they always know how to destroy the timing, don't they?
Oh, my dog's done it all the time. Literally, before coming on, I actually went to my dog, give it a cut, and said, right, you can't come in Daddy's office now, because the last time you came in Daddy's office, you took the internet out.
Yeah, she did.
They lift our spirits.
They are beautiful for that.
What were you saying? Go on. I interrupted with my dogs.
I've always had the issue of like not feeling. I've never outwardly felt I don't deserve it, because I've never seen it as something I have, if that makes sense. It's for me more being something I am, and I suppose for me it's manifested in a different way. I've never felt deserving of other things in life, or I've never really felt the need for a lot of other things in life. I have felt largely separated from something within myself for a lot of my life. And it's a part of my journey is being reacquainted with that side of myself. Now, I have been told that I will travel, and I have been told that these things will change, and I trust that where it's led me is any interpretation I place on that now, it won't be that, because it's the unknown. I can't think at the moment what would make me want to actually get up and move or be in another place.
Then it's not the time, is it?
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's like we have thought about moving house or whatever, but it's like it's always just been a sense of this is where I am. I'm by other minute, like I'm by here. So for me, I think it's knowing you're in a knowing, and it's like when I look at certain things that Spirit have told me, and the thing is, just the annoying thing I find when you get these communications, and it can come through dreams, and it can come through in the dream, it's happening now, right? It's happening there and then.
Yeah.
But what they're trying to tell is the dominoes to allow that to happen are happening now, but you can't see the outcome unless you can see the dominoes falling. I can see what certain dominoes were. It's like Dave passing away. I was told a year prior that would happen. I was given exactly what would happen, which was I would basically have to take him somewhere and I'd have to leave him there. I couldn't go in with him. And I was told that a year prior. Now, you go back to 2019 and you say to me, you are going to take your dog to a place, looks like a house, he's not going to be well, you're never going to see him again, and you're just going to leave him there. Under what circumstances would I actually do that? And, well, I now know it's the current world circumstances because I had no other option. I literally had the choice between kicking up a fuss and basically being told by the vet they wouldn't put him down. I had nowhere to go to put him, and literally he suffered. He was suffering, and literally after about an hour after he went, my dog hated loud bangs, right? And literally under normal circumstances that day I would probably be under my stairs with him, just making sure that he doesn't do himself, the house, or anyone else any damage, because he'd get himself in such a panicked state.
I know, it's horrible.
You would, I would literally have to give him stuff to destroy so he wouldn't destroy anything around me, right? If he was in that state that he was when I took him to the vets that morning, literally went downhill, and the vet said to me, no, there should have been signs. I was like, look, I brought him to you last July, and you said, there could possibly be something wrong. And I'm like, but he's old. I don't really want any invasive treatment. Thank you very much. He's running around. He's having a great time. And last thing I want is you guys prodding and poking him and all that sort of stuff. It didn't bother me about the money. If the money was needed, the money would have come.
Yeah.
But it was showing me in what circumstance. So I could never see a circumstance where I would leave my dog in that place. But it happened, and it was something, don't get me wrong, it tore my friggin' heart out, but it was the least out of two evils. Now, that is quite a bad experience, but it can also happen the other way around with certain things. Like, I can't see how it says as well, this channel, these conversations will eventually be seen by a lot of people. Now, I have no desire, really, to be known by a lot of people. I actually have a very small circle of friends and family that I associate with. I could probably account for them on two hands that I actually share myself with. Not about social media, but I have a very small amount of people that are allowed in to understand who I really am, and that's just by choice. I'm quite a private individual in that sort of sense. Yeah. So it's not a desire that I have, so I can't see how it would happen. But just like I couldn't see how... And I think that is an important lesson, because a lot of people, they see themselves either in the future or in the past, and they don't consider the now. What's happening now? And so many times in my life has someone said one sentence that something that's never clicked before just suddenly makes sense. And that's literally out of one sentence and can change your world in that instant. And I think that's the power of consciousness. That's, for me, what's outside that programming is where you believe that expectation creates limitation. I go on this journey for me.
But you were saying before about the changes in the future and time and things like this and occurrences. I mean, that's what you're saying, like it's in the now, isn't it?
Yes.
And out of that, it's maybe like rings and, multi-dimensional the now, and in the now is any of the possibilities that can happen.
Yes.
In the next moment, in the very next moment.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
I didn't know I was going to wake up in that morning that my dog wouldn't be there in that evening. As far as I was...
He's saying about getting out of program, getting out. That's it. Knowing that in this moment, anything can happen in the next moment. You know, it doesn't have to follow a pattern, because we've all been trained that everything is a pattern. We have a psychological type, we have a psychological pattern, we have certain things we will always do. Why? Do we have to? Is that true?
Exactly.
If we question those things, that the pattern is all powerful, then what about me? I am not this body. I am not. I go off at night and travel all over the place when I'm sleeping. So I'm not the physical body, I'm a consciousness. And if we really get that deep inside, I think the pattern, we have the power to somehow steer that pattern. It's almost beyond conscious. It just begins to happen in a wiser way. Because it's not us, it's deeper. It's us we can't explain. It's the deepest pattern. Well, I think we're heading there. As humanity is heading there to that point.
A pattern, patterns are very useful. You look at synchronicities and how synchronicities, like Rich, we've had this, haven't we? Where milking next Friday will not actually have any bearing on us, and suddenly we can be in a case, and then you have experienced X, Y, Z, and B, and I experience A, B, C, and monkeys, and suddenly and someone else will experience bread, butter and jam and buildings, and suddenly in the case it all kind of it'll come together and it'll make sense. What
about the mandala that the Buddhist monks make, the most beautiful, fantastic mandalas, and then they're told to just blow it all away? Why do they do that?
Well, because it's like you're told this in education, and I was going to say this to someone the other day when he was on about always learning something new, and I was like, you are, but it's the unlearning that's actually fun.
The unlearning and making the space for another pattern.
Yeah, exactly.
So this is it. Patterns are important, but also to let them disintegrate. So it's the old alchemy, you collaborate and you bring it together, and then you dissipate. And if you can't let go of things, you can't move forward. Exactly. And if you stick to humanity's at a point now, I think it's got to learn to let go of patterns. Patterns that are destroying the earth, for example. Yeah, patterns of consumption, for example.
And patterns are stereotypes.
Yeah. And trained and fed to us on TV as advertising constantly.
Patterns are stereotypes. One of my biggest things I've tried to teach people is, if you understand why anybody does anything, right? So instead of if somebody says, "Oh, you're crap," you are, right? You're like, if somebody says to me, "You're a crap medium," right? I don't just go. I know. If nobody's looking, if I normally most people, when they tell you something negative about yourself, like a negative reinforcement about yourself, you go, I don't. See, now I go, what made them say that?
Yeah.
Now that's what I do differently, right? Yeah. Most people will go, am I? What is it about me that they don't like? Now, what you do is you go, what is it about them that makes them not like you?
Yeah.
And that's and you find out so much.
Yeah.
And you realise that everything that led up to that person's moment of meeting you has given them the reason that they've said what they've said to you. And once you understand things like that, it just all goes over your head. I find that so many things that affect people that I know. And then I'm like, why? It's like, it's kind of, and I've been trying to teach that.
Yeah.
Not so easy, Keith.
No, my teacher said to me years ago, Keith, what other people think of you is not your business. Don't let it get in your head. And I think that was wise advice, But he wasn't saying don't reflect on things, because he told me to reflect inward on things and be truthful. But basically, people you know it as a dominant. They come and they try and wind you up. They want to fight with you. They wind and wind and wind, hoping that you'll fight because they think they're a better fighter than you, and they're going to knock you out in front of their friends and look good, or their girlfriend or something. So, this is the problem. It's the human concept or ego. Yeah. But what you're looking for is obvious. Is that deeper self that doesn't need to react to their stuff.
Yeah. If you
and I think that's what we're all looking for, that kind of peace that comes out of the idea that it doesn't really matter if people don't understand me. But if I understand myself, then I will make this life free from most of the programming that's been given to me, and I will act out of a center of freedom, which is purely spiritual, purely life within me. And that's how I try to live my life, from a point of what flows, basically, not what is out there and is programmed or trying to be programmed by others into me.
Yeah.
And I think that's so important for us to think about. Is it really me? Do I really feel that?
Absolutely.
Are my influences what make me feel that way, or is that really me? That is a big...
and you're talking about also all the little things that come with you. I mean, past life things are things that have learnt me, and I'll give you one story, and I'll try and make it really short. But when we first came to Spain, before we came to live here full time, Fiona came out first with our little daughter Lisa, and she met a German lady, and she was cleaning the house for this lady, and she told me, Fiona, on the phone about this woman. She was about 85, maybe 90, and I met her, and her name, I shouldn't say her full name, but it was Helen von something, and I met her. I came down to we were out, she was outside sitting in the garden, coffee, tea, and she made me a cup of tea, and she was talking to me. She kept looking at me, and she said, "Do I know you?" Now, I've always been afraid of Germany, and I always felt, I watched documentaries about Jews, and I felt I was Jew in my last life. So I said to her, I just looked at her, and it came over me. I said, "You had a shop in Munich?" "Yeah." I said, and it was wonderful, beautiful women's clothing. And she said, "Yeah." And I said, there was a shop next door which was jewellery and goldsmiths, which belonged to a Jewish family. And she just looked at me, just was staring, and she didn't know what to do. And I said to her, and there was a little boy who used to come in, and you were really kind to him. And you used to put you on, he was about 3.5 years old, you put him on your knee, and you fed him you had a jar with lollipops, and you took a lollipop and you give him a lollipop, and you told him stories while he ate the lollipop. And one day he disappeared. And I said, "You never saw him again, did you?" I said, "No." She said, "No." I said, "Well, I was that little boy." And I remembered it, and I started to cry. I said, "I was that little boy, and you were so kind." And she looked at me, and she said to me, "I left Germany 6 months after that, and I moved to USA." She became quite famous psychotherapist under Jan Polsky. I don't know what his first name is. And that was, before she met me. And that's a true story. And that was my proof from spirit of past lives, because that question, are they real? I knew I'd been Jewish. I knew I was in a concentration camp, and I knew I was from a very rich family. And I met in this life a woman that I explained exactly the condition and the shop. I explained everything I saw about it. And she could hardly talk. She was shaking slightly, and she could hardly talk. And she said to me, "Yeah, everything you say is true." And I said, "Well, you were very kind, and thank you for taking care of me." 2 weeks later, she died, but I heard she died in peace. So, this is how the universe works. If we're open enough, this is how it works and cleans things. And that's where I found because I came from healing first. I never wanted to be a medium. I wanted to be a healer. I think that the spirits that work with me work a lot with readings that bring on healings. Healing is I love healing. I love doing healing, teaching healing and stuff. But that was, that's how direct spirit can be.
Mm.
And it healed the pain in me. And I would never go to Germany. And since then I've been to Germany and I loved it. And when I listen to German, I can understand loads of it. And I've never studied it. But I can understand a lot of German. Some of it might be because I understand a lot of Swedish and there's some similarity. But not all of it. I understand a lot.
I had a lot of nightmares when I was a kid, Keith, about being in the concentration camps.
Yeah.
And I did. When you mentioned that, I kind of brought it home. I had a lot of nightmares about being in the concentration camps. And my friends a couple of years back went to Auschwitz because it's like a tourist attraction now, isn't it?
Yeah.
I mean, which is, when they come back and they were telling me, I said, it's the one place on earth I could probably never go. I just couldn't go there.
I've never been able to go. I've been asked to go, but I couldn't go.
I couldn't go. There's something, I don't know, I can't explain it. And it's something we've talked about. I'd like to do past life regression, just to see. It's something I'd like to do. I would like to do that. But yeah, I've had a kind of similar story in that kind of encounter. But I know where you're coming from. It's a powerful thing, when you remember something.
When people talk about past lives a lot of time, right, and they say, "Oh, I was such and such and such and such," and I say to people, if you want to remember your past lives, you better be ready for it. Because the first thing you remember the love, but one of the first things you remember is the pain.
Yeah.
And I've had numerous occasions where I've recognised people in this life that I've known in past lives, and it's literally just been on the sound of a voice. It's been a very powerful driver for me, and I've had regression, and in the last 2 years I've started having my past lives come back to me in dreams. I've remembered about 6 or 7. I had a very powerful... First of all, before sharing this, Keith, I want to thank you for sharing that story, because that is such a powerful story what you just shared. And
thank you.
To be honest, I'm a bit lost for words, because there's very few people who've actually shared stories that hit home and the way that has, to be honest. So I want to say thank you for that. I can't remember the name of the city, but you know the show Ancient Aliens?
No.
Well,
the show or book?
The show is basically based on the book, essentially, but it's a documentary. It's an American History Channel show.
Oh, yeah. Is it Eric Von Däniken or?
Yeah, that's him.
Is it?
Eric Von Däniken, yeah.
I don't really know.
A German writer, yeah. A German man, yeah.
Yeah. I think he's part.
Chariot of the Gods, he wrote.
Yeah, that's him.
Is he in it? Is he in it, Rich? Because
Yeah, he's in it quite a lot.
There's I had a dream about 2 years. A lot of the way spirit communicate with me is in dreams.
Yeah.
And I had a dream where it was myself and my brother. I lost my brother in '99, and I still talk to him. He's kind of like a guide for me now. I wouldn't be surprised if you bloody picked up on him at some point when we've spoken. But anyway, in this dream, we were in a large sort of a very built up kind of area, but it was like a desert community, and I felt like I was in a sort of Middle Eastern country, and we were clearing people out, and there were earthquakes, and there was 40 of us left, and we in the dream we were just about to leave, and the mountain exploded. And I don't know if it wasn't a volcano. At least I don't think it was. And then in the dream, I'd gone further forward in time. It was myself and my brother again, and we were looking at the rubble, and it was just literally rubble. I don't know if that was us as spirits, because I was looking through my own eyes, looking at the rubble. But there is a city, an ancient city, uncovered, and it was I think it's relatively recent, last 100 years or so, in Pakistan, that they don't actually know what killed the people, and it literally was like the way there was about 40 bodies there. The city was leveled, and they say the effects were very similar to what happened at Pompeii, where literally their bodies were superheated, and when they showed it on the show, that's what I dreamt, that's what I experienced.
Which sounds more like an atom bomb than volcanic activity, doesn't it?
It does sound so. To me, all I seen is there's a mountain near it, like looks like a bit like the mountains of Monument Valley, a bit like that, right? And it literally just went bang. It exploded. It didn't come out the top. It exploded, and the wave just hit us, and I was dead. I was dead instantly. I don't even think I felt pain. I know I cried my heart out when I woke up, because it was that powerful. But when I saw the Ancient Aliens episode literally about 2 or 3 weeks ago, it absolutely blew my mind, and I was in tears then.
Is that on Gaia TV or?
No, it's you can get it.
Is it on YouTube?
History Channel.
It's on the History Channel.
Okay. So you can watch it on YouTube too. You don't have to go and pay a subscription or.
No. You can see certain ones on YouTube. Do you have Amazon Prime?
No.
Right. You can actually get seasons 1 to 12. There's a History Channel subscription you can get on Amazon Prime for $5 a month.
Oh, that's nice.
So that you can watch the entirety, the first 12 seasons of it.
Yeah.
It's quite a good show, actually. Right, guys, we're coming to the end of the show, I think, because it's...
we've been a long time,
It's been a good hour and 40
Like 3 old men just didn't know when to stop talking, yeah?
And I think if we carry on much longer, I think Keith is going to melt.
The world will explode, before we finish.
Is there any closing points that you guys would like to make before we finish up tonight's show?
Well, I'd like to say it's been nice to talk to like minds that are searching but in different directions for the same thing. Well, no, like different spokes on a wheel, you know, but we're all going to the same center. And so that's been a enjoyable stretching of my mind into seeing things through your eyes. So that has been nice. I always like to learn, and I always like to meet people that are genuinely seekers and searchers, you know. And you two are. So I've enjoyed tonight. It's been lovely. Thank you. Thank you for the invite.
I would love to have you back on the show at a later date. It's been absolutely brilliant. We've had great fun. Rich, any closing points from yourself, my friend?
I would. If you have anything you'd like to share, if you've done anything or you've talked about anything or you have anything recorded, Keith.
Yeah.
We'd love to share it on the channel, right? If you have anything, you know, like, because I know you said you do talks, don't you? You talk a lot. And
my wife and I, we do it together, you see. And yeah, we've got some podcasts maybe you would like to see and put up if you wish, if you want to.
Yeah, anything like that you got, right? We'd love to share it. And thank you for coming on. It's been an absolute pleasure having you on, Keith. And I'm gutted we've run out of time because I could listen to your stories for the entire night.
I've enjoyed your stories too, you know. But the same, you know, we can put some stuff of yours and spread the news over the people we know, you know, simple as that. So we can both.
Same here, man. Well, we'll link.
And if you have any other subjects, come back on, Keith, if you would.
Well, thank you for the invite. As I say, it's been a great pleasure, and I've really enjoyed it. And so have my dogs, although they're both sleeping.
Consider it an open invite, my friend, anytime. And
that's great. If I come up with any ideas, I'll just give you a ring, Jared.
Yeah, man, give us a shout. if you want to add Richard on the old Facebook.
Yeah, that would be great. I'd like to talk. Yeah. And Richard and you, Jared, if ever you get stuck with something personal and you think I might be able to help, move you forward with it, I do a lot of mixture of psychological and spiritual psychological, so quite happy to give a little bit of whatever you can help. Yeah.
If there's any
and I would do, I will send. Yeah.
Oh, great! Thank you. Well, it's been a lovely evening, hasn't it? Been really nice.
Yeah, it's been chilled. It's been lovely. Yes. Yeah. I like the no debates when they go like this. We've had a few interesting people on over the last couple of weeks. And I got to be honest, they've all been in the same, like you just said, just, a different spoke to the same wheel. Yeah.
It's all going, coming from a different angle, but heading in the same direction, yeah? Yeah. And that's what we need now. We don't need argument. We need to work together, but keep the individuality too, I think,
Agree.
But thank you again.
No problem. Well, thank you guys for watching. We'll see you soon for another No Debate.
Yes, thank you.
I'm going to run the end credits. So thank you guys. Take care.
Love and light, pal peeps.